Well, welcome to our third iteration of Faith Discussions. I am blessed to have the ever patient and gracious Reverend Bonnie Anderson, who is currently during the pandemic times doing a lot of life coaching and remote speaking for churches and organizations. And if I am not mistaken, to show you how generous she actually is today your anniversary with your husband?
It is. It's our
Yeah, I
42nd anniversary.
I saw that on Facebook. Yeah, how amazing, and it was great to see pictures of, although you're always youthful, but, a more youthful Bonnie and Andy Anderson. Maybe, because I'm sure that my introduction of you didn't encapsulate everything that you do. Maybe you could just take a moment to talk about you, your passions, your ministry.
Sure. My husband and Andy and I moved to Oregon 13 years ago now to take over a New Thought Church, the Centers for Spiritual Living, and we did that for 7 years. And then we felt a calling to travel. So we retired from the church and we started traveling around speaking. And Andy's a musician, so my husband's a musician, and he would sing, and we did workshops and things. And then COVID hit, so
Yeah.
we've been staying home and doing things remotely and really enjoying that.
Mhm.
And I think that my passion is really to help people through teaching various modalities to awaken
Okay.
to the truth of who they are, to the brilliance and the truth, because we spend a lot of time looking at how we're not good enough.
Oh,
and
okay.
and so I
Well,
think a lot of us do that normally.
okay,
Yeah,
so kind of like as an antidote
exactly.
to,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, I
being
don't teach
okay.
you to do that.
Yeah.
We can all do that just fine on our
I
own. But
yeah.
yeah, through teaching classes online and coaching to help people awaken to the fact that they are all that.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and, you mentioned your husband, Andy, who, y for anybody who's listening, one of the best things you can do for your day is to check out Andy Anderson's music. It is like I always think of it kind of, this is my analogy for Andy's performance, is it's kind of like when you go to the beach and you're standing waiting for the waves to kind of come in and wash over your feet, but then all of a sudden there's that one unexpected wave that just can, like, knock you over. that that's how I think Andy's performances are. It's just, it starts off as this, like, very kind of intense, and but it just grows in such an intensity that I find myself just completely, like, knocked over, with
That's great.
with
I love
yeah.
that.
Yeah, hopefully, maybe in the description I can link to some of his stuff. Um, so maybe you can help us out to know how you got started in the spiritual path, or in the kind of things that you do, because certainly when you speak at the UU, for instance, um, a lot of us know you, and so everything that you're talking about often seems to be very contemporary with either the things you're studying or, what's going on in the world. But I would be very curious to know, where does this come from? How did you get started doing this?
Well, I always was. Well, I think I started having an interest in metaphysics when I was in my 30s, just reading different books and exploring and doing different things. And um, our youngest, we lived in California then, and our youngest son Ben went to a, a school that was run by the Centers for Spiritual Living in Fremont, California, and we had no interest in what they were teaching. We just brought our son to school there, and there were a lot of loving, great people. And one day we checked out the church, and we just fell in love with the teachings of Ernest Holmes, and similar to Unity. And there's a lot of Emerson and Thoreau, and this kind of new thought teachers. New Thought, Ancient Wisdom, they call it. And we just became fascinated with it. We started taking classes and just never stopped, just one class after another. And as similar to Unitarians, the Center for Spiritual Living folk love to learn
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
explore and study. And so that became a passion. And then just through taking classes, my pastor there said, "Do you think you would ever want to become a minister?" And I said, "Oh, of course not, ever, never."
Right.
And then it just evolved from there. I was the youth minister there for a
Okay.
number of years, and then we ended up taking a church, which we never thought we would do. So,
Wow. Wow. Yeah. And so I'm curious, what was the school age that the school was operating?
oh, it was preschool and
Oh,
kindergarten.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
really little. Yeah, and
Yeah.
they weren't teaching the principles. They were really. It was just like a very loving preschool. They sort of taught these principles under the table because they didn't want to be identified as being religious, and then people wouldn't want to bring the kids there, and it wasn't. But it was just basically loving who you are. And then they used to sing this great little song called "Every Little Cell in My Body is Healthy."
Oh, okay.
So
Right.
you think they sort of snuck things in like that,
Right.
and yeah, it was a wonderful school.
Well, yeah, but at the same time, I think there are some religious principles that even the most strident of atheists would say that that is healthy, you know.
Right,
I
right.
would hope anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind just sticking on this for a second, you talked about the teachings, being drawn to the teachings. Could you be a little bit more specific? Like what kinds of lessons were you getting, or philosophies or things like that?
Yeah, well, one of the tenets of many religions
Mhm.
is that there's only one. We're all connected. We're all the unity, the I am that I am, and uh, that has. And I know with the Unitarians, it's we are all part of the. Oh, I did a talk on it once. I'm trying to
Mhm.
remember what it was. We're all part of an interconnected web of
Well done.
humanity, I think it
Well
says. Yeah,
done. Yeah.
and so
Fantastic.
that was new to me, that we're not us and them, that we're all one. And during these times, that can be a challenging teaching because it's so easy to fall into the separation that we're seeing in our country now and to blame other people. And I tell you, I fall into it. I became, it's so easy. It's so seductive to get caught up with the news.
Yeah.
And I found myself, I would have to continually remind myself that we're all one. And, just coming from that higher perspective where you see the things that your soul sees, not necessarily your ego or your intellectual mind, but that knowing that we really we're more alike than we are different.
Yes. Agreed. Agreed. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't want to sound overly conspiratorial,
Mm.
but in the contentiousness that we're living through, like something that you mentioned, um, to me, it almost seems like through the media, there's this coordinated effort to make people angry and feel like victims, and it's like it's like drinking negativity through a fire hose sometimes,
No.
and I I have been my personal battle lately has been just fighting being bitter and angry. I find myself with such little patience for people, and I don't like that. I don't like being that kind of person.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I a lot of folks here in Douglas County, which is conservative,
Mhm.
watch Fox News. That's their reality. And I came to realize, though, like you said, that even the new, like CNN and the places that I considered were liberal news, they're really pointing out the differences, not the similarities, and
Yeah.
in getting us angry and getting us upset and feeling like victims. It's so true. And I find myself getting lured into that. But that's why I think for me, it's like a push pull. I want to stay away from the news
Yeah.
and I want to go in it. And so, it helps me to pull all the way out, to go for a hike or
Yeah.
to go to the
Right.
ocean, or and that's a higher truth right there. You feel that, that, like, this too shall pass.
Mhm.
I mean, this is a time in history that's very difficult, and this too shall pass.
Well, that is probably one of the best points that's come up so far, is because I take pretty much daily walks in the park, and like when you pass somebody in the park, often they'll smile and say hello, to you, and you have this like passing congeniality between you two, and for all you know, this person could be politically diametrically opposed to you. And yet, for that moment, you get to inhabit the same space, you get a passing good feeling. It's like things are not that bad, in that moment.
And we're not that different in that
And we're not,
moment because
yeah,
we love being outside. We're we have families, we have people we care about, no matter what side of the political spectrum we're on. And that, I think it helps me to be reminded of those things. And you're right, when you're outside in nature and you're on a hike somewhere and you
yeah,
pass people and everybody's exhilarated because they just climbed the big
that's,
hill,
yeah,
we're not saying, oh, by the way, who did you vote for?
right,
It's
right,
irrelevant. Yeah,
right,
so
right.
true.
So, you talked about doing life coaching online. I know you wouldn't be able to get specific with like individual people that you've helped, but are you noticing things in your clientele that are different now than, say, maybe like a year ago or 4 years ago, or
Well, there's a lot of fear and pain right now. I think that is coming to the surface. Maybe it was always there, but it seems to be, a lot of people are challenged right now. A lot of people, and I myself feel that way sometimes too. I'm get pulled into the negativity easier than I would before.
Mm.
And I say seductive because it almost is like an addiction where you enjoy, like, let me tell you another story about
Right.
what that person did. And so I think it's challenging for a lot of us to pull out of that because that doesn't really, it's not productive, and it doesn't make us feel better, and it doesn't help us to identify the goals and the desires we have for our lives. It's sort of a detour, I think.
Do you think that people are having a more difficult time in their interpersonal relationships, like family, friends, romantic?
Yeah, I'm hearing about so many people whose family members have beloved family members who are on the other side of the political spectrum,
Mhm.
and how may it's caused rifts in relationships and lack of communication and things. So and a lot of hurt feelings. I seeing that a lot. A lot of us have that. Myself included. Andy and I have that. Yeah, it's challenging to come from love when there's so much hatred being taught too.
Well, and so what if w does it seem like politics just overshadows everything else? Because I was thinking about, like the problems with us being in quarantine, and, you know, it seems like there's so much uncertainty. But when I look at like the uncertainty of our culture, of our civilization, of our society, it's like every aspect of it just slams back into the political world. And it's like, how do we deal with, because not one of us can do anything about politics in Washington, right? Our ability to affect the world in our community is is limited, but at least it exists. But it seems like everybody's uncertainty just has to do with Washington. How do we get past that?
Well, for one thing, we've been talking a lot about political things, and you're right. COVID is such a huge issue right in the middle of all of this,
Right.
and causes a lot of distress personally for people, isolation, and like our son Ben has is a single dad with two boys that just started going back to school, but he's been alone, with them in his house, helping them with school, and they are spending way too much time together, and it's very challenging. And he
Yeah.
said, he thought a lot of people were struggling, a lot of parents were struggling right now. But yeah, it's so fascinating that it's so tied with politics, because
Mhm.
why would you think that a pandemic would be so political, that
Right.
it's
Right.
become so politicized, that it all seems like one story,
Mhm.
what the pandemic, as well as the political divide that we see. Personally, you talked about getting outside. I mean, it's such a simple thing. For
Yeah.
one thing, meditation for me is necessary, because it keeps me remembering the bigger picture. It just connects me with the inner voice, rather than the CNN voice,
Yeah.
or the Fox News voice, the true voice within. And it also really helps my mental health by being outside, because again, it gives you a gives me a larger perspective on, life is better than I see when I turn the TV on in the
Right.
midst of all this. But those are two tools that are really essential to me. I don't always get outside as much as it is good, because also it's raining here in Oregon, and I'm kind of a wimp. I don't like I don't put all my rain gear on and get out. But
Right. That's the
and
Californian in you.
yeah,
Yeah.
and reading inspirational books, whether they're sacred texts to ancient texts, or whether they're contemporary things that give me wisdom.
Mhm.
Those help me also.
Do you have like a go-to text? Is there one
It
that
kind of changes. Like right now, I'm reading the In the Flow of Life by Eric Butterworth, who's actually a Unity teacher, and
Mhm.
I really love the idea that we're in the flow. We're not fighting against anything. It's like being in the flow of the river. It's just
Mhm.
going with the flow.
Yeah.
And there's a book by Emma Curtis Hopkins on metaphysics for the 21st century, unveiling your hidden power, just reminding us that we're not powerless. We have an innate power that we possess. And I'm reading Caste, which
Oh, okay.
have you read that?
Is that the Ibram X. Kendi, or am I mixing
No,
that up? That
I
was
want to read his books too.
yeah.
I don't remember the woman. It's a
Is
woman.
it Wilkerson? Isabella
Yes, it is.
Wilkerson.
It
Yeah,
is, and
that's it.
that's
Yeah.
an excellent book, talking about the history, the roots of everything, and how things have developed in our country. So, and then sometimes just picking up something by Mark Nepo, or something with poetry, David White, just
Oh,
or Mary
nice.
Oliver, just getting connected to the beauty of life.
Right. Well, and that's, and it goes back to your idea about, like, getting out, for a hike, or, it, I think it's vital to remind ourselves that beauty exists, you know, and so it seems like earlier, if I asked you for a prescription of how do we fix it's really, we've got to fix ourselves in a way. We've got to take care
Exactly.
of ourselves, you know.
Yeah, and it's it's so easy to get caught up in everything that's happening, the emotions of it. It's it's so easy to see the other guys as bad and us as
Yeah.
good.
Right.
And if there was ever a time when it's easy, I mean, the distinctions are not subtle,
Mhm.
they're blatant. And so it's so easy to say, I'm the good guy, you're the bad guy, but
Yeah.
that really doesn't do anything to solve anything. Um, uh, and but that can be the big challenge, is to not see the differences in people, and to not feel self-righteous about. I think both sides can feel self-righteous,
I,
that we're
mhm.
the right ones and
Yep.
you're the wrong ones.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the great pursuits in this stage of my life has been to try in some way to bridge a divide between people who think differently. So like if I come to an opinion on, modern, so say like a hot topic like abortion, right? Or what would be another one, like, oh, I don't, universal health care or something like that, and I finally feel like I've come to an opinion on it. One of the first things I'll try and do is construct the best argument I can from the other side.
I
You know,
love that. I love
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah, and of course, now the downside is that so many times in my life lately, I don't feel like I stand for anything.
Mm,
It's just that whoever, whatever conversation I'm in, I'm just always taking an opposite position.
mhm.
But when it comes to refining, what you actually believe, or maybe what you don't believe in a way, that I've found that to be the best method.
Yeah, and I think that it can be very powerful to put yourself in the other person's shoes
Yeah,
also.
yeah,
Uh, and that something that I don't often want to do because I don't want to be in the other person's shoes, but yet,
yeah.
it really helps to think that looking at the world from someone else's perspective who
Right.
is different from your own, to actually think about how you would feel if you were brought up that way, or if you
Yep.
felt that way, if you watched that news station. And because there are two parts of our country that believe totally different things about the election, and I have to remember that the people that believe the election was fraudulent really they believe it as much as I believe that it wasn't. So,
Well,
um,
and you could even take it further to say that there were two fraudulent elections. There were plenty of people in 2016 who were talking
yes,
about fraud, the election being fraudulent.
that's
Yeah.
true. That's
So
so true.
yeah, I told this. I don't want to tell the story too many times, but so I spend a lot of time at the gym, and so prior to the election, they would have like MSNBC, CNN, Fox News on the TVs, and from time to time, people would angrily walk by and change it from CNN to Fox News, or and the one thing that everybody could agree on was charge TV's reruns of Chips. That was and it made me realize that Eric Estrada was the man to bring us together. Yeah.
I
But
love that. I love that.
and of course, it's a true story, but it's a joke, but I don't know, maybe it's like entertainment or culture, or it exists at in a higher state than than our political discourse, maybe.
Well, it wouldn't take much to get us to a higher
Fair
state
enough.
right
Fair
now, would it? But yeah.
fair enough.
What do you think about, what is it about Eric Estrada tell me
Oh,
what you
oh,
think.
oh, yeah, yeah. No, let's explore this. This is, yeah. Honest. Okay, I actually was giving this some thought. I think that in the dichotomy between like the Larry Wilcox character and the Eric Estrada character, the Larry Wilcox is kind of like the Boy Scout, and Eric Estrada's a bad boy, but he's not a bad boy in the way that he's untrustworthy he's actually very honest and very trustworthy, occasionally willing to break the rules in order to do what's right. And I think there's something that's very alluring about that, because his character is hyper individualistic. He's very much like an individual. He's very much a solitary man in a lot of ways, and yet he belongs. He's given himself over to this more noble cause of the California Highway Patrol, right? So, and I think that's very attractive to people.
Yeah, and he's a strong character,
Yep,
and he may break the rules, but he's got his morals are there, right?
exactly.
He believes in the system, in the morals of that. So
It's
he's got the sort of brave individualistic
Mhm,
side as well
mhm.
as wanting to uphold the values of society.
Yeah.
So
We could totally write a spiritual a sermon on chips
yeah,
and why we could
like
co-write something.
like you compare him to like a Bernie Sanders
Sure, yeah,
character. It's like
why not?
totally different, you know.
Well,
And I go ahead.
oh yeah, well no, and I mean, of course, like it doesn't hurt that that the actor playing Ponch, he was a very, very good looking man. He was very easy to look at. He, beautiful smile, beautiful eyes, and that helps, you know.
Well, and you make me think of something else, Michael, that helps, and that's humor. I
Yes.
think that, that
Yeah.
during this time when we all get so serious and self-righteous, that it's really important to have humor. If we can laugh about anything, it's also another way to pull us out of the lower energies of what's going on. Is to just is to rise up and just laugh at something silly, or
Yes.
watch a comedy, or somehow even the late night comedians that make fun of everybody.
Right. Right. Yeah, and those are the best comedians that can make fun of everybody because
Right.
there is something hopefully there's something humorous about everyone or every situation, something. And I think of like it's not mine. I'm stealing this from another person, but in King Lear, the Shakespeare play, the only person that can be honest with the king is the court jester. Right.
Yeah,
And there,
yeah,
yeah, and
yeah.
yeah, there is something about comedy that allows us to be honest, to tell the truth, that only comedy can do.
Good point. The clown, the court jester, that character that pokes fun at everyone and
Right,
can tell the truth and get away with it. Good point.
right.
Good point. I
Uh,
wonder who that would be in our in our society, in our politics. It would be. I'm not sure.
that's a great question. Yeah, because again, like we keep wrapping around to, where everything's become so politicized. I think, Hollywood comedy, television shows, um, it seems like everybody is expected to stake out a side,
Mm.
and and maybe that's something that we should. It's like, look, we don't have to be tribalistic. We can be individuals, in the same way that we seek individual health, in that, meditate, go outside, take care of your body, take care, eat good food. We can be individualistic in our views as well,
Yeah,
hopefully.
that's true. Good point.
um
And isn't it interesting though how masks have become so politicized?
yes.
A simple thing like putting a mask on your face,
Mhm,
it sort of identify you with a certain political party,
mhm.
or are you a patriot? Are you individualistic? Are if you wear a mask, are you being a sheep?
Right, right.
And do you dislike people who wear masks or don't wear masks? It's really interesting because you can walk through a grocery store and get dirty looks from both sides, depending on what you're on. So,
It's a good point. How I feel about it personally, now, and this is just me, right? I think it's probably most likely that masks are the way that we thought them to be when this whole thing started, that they're not that effective, that it's really more of like, like a pacifier for people, which, and again, this is just my opinion, and I am not a medical professional at all, but at the same time, when I go into a grocery store, it's like, how much does it really cost me to put on a mask?
right.
It's like, that's not really a hill that I want to die on. Yeah, and so if it makes people feel better, then whatever, uh,
And there are people that take that point and say, because you make me, I'm not going to put one on. and
well, fair
and I
enough.
can understand that.
Yeah.
And I think that also it depends on how old you are. The older people, we tend to be a bit more productive, and younger people, it's just the nature of things. You guys are you can live forever, and
Uh,
and
I
it's
can't believe you just referred to yourself as an old person.
oh
Yeah.
yeah. Uh, I
That's
mean, if I've
funny.
been married 42 years, I'm pretty
Okay.
old.
Fair enough, fair enough. You
Yeah,
you
yeah.
you do not have an old energy about you at all, I will say.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
Don't tell my grandkids that, you know?
Oh, okay. The, yeah, and, just in the interest of full disclosure, your grandsons, were regular visitors to the UU church, and, we that's one of the things that I miss greatly
Yeah,
about, about meeting in person, because it's like the families, seeing the families and, like, the intergenerational camaraderie that you would have. I and especially for kids, for young children, I'm thinking like still in the single digits. Um, the amount of energy that those small humans have is just unbelievable, and the thought of them being like cooped up in their houses, it makes me sad for them in a way.
yeah. It's a challenging time. I imagine a lot of books will be written about the effects of being quarantined, uh, because it can be challenging. I know both of my grandsons are glad to be. Well, one was glad to be going back to school. The
Mhm.
other one didn't want to, but when he went back the first day, he liked it. But yeah, it's very isolating, and
Yeah.
they don't have their friends to hang out with, and church. They tried to do church on Zoom, and maybe they're still doing it.
Yeah.
It's challenging because the kids are on Zoom with classrooms so much that they don't want to Zoom on Saturday or Sunday. They
Yeah.
want to run around outside or play video games or something. But
I I don't blame them.
yeah,
I don't want to be, we do 2 hours of Zoom a week, and that seems to be plenty. Like this is a very enjoyable conversation for me, but I wouldn't want to do this for 6 to 8 hours a day.
no,
You know?
me either. And
Yeah.
I've taken a lot of classes. I've taken the opportunity to take classes during this time because I'm home more. And so I do have days when I have, a class and then a meeting and a women's group that meets
Yeah.
now. And at the end of the day, it's like, no more Zoom. It's very, I mean, it's a platform. We're glad it's there
Yep.
because it does allow us to connect. Yet staring at a screen too many hours a day just does not feel good. Sitting in a chair staring at a screen.
Well, so would you mind if we talked briefly about some of your projects a little bit more in depth, about some of your recent passions that you've been doing?
Sure. Well, I think that, I've been studying the idea in a class um, that it's sort of the idea of grace that
Mhm.
we feel like we have to work so hard at everything and control everything in our lives when actually when we let go of that control, for me, when I let go of it, then miracles can show up just
Okay.
by me allowing the good to come in rather than feeling I have to micromanage everything, including my family and everybody else. So I've been studying some of that. And writing is I'm taking a writing class, and writing it can be very cathartic during this
Mhm.
time. That can be another tool, I think, to to calm down or get out of the all of this whirlwind that we're in. Is just writing, and or even reading novels,
Mhm.
or reading for pleasure. um, and I think that one of the things that has I think I have a passion about not seeing as helping people not see the separation as much as the togetherness. And
Mhm.
I'm not even succeeding at that because I struggle with that myself. I say that I want to help people see the higher truth, that the interconnectivity that we are, like the Indira's net, that we're all
Mhm.
reflect each other no matter what we believe. And I believe in that. And then I turn on CNN and I find myself yelling about some representative that's
Mhm.
talking about a conspiracy theory or something. So yeah, so I'm not always successful with that, but I do. I think Andy and I both believe that love as a principle, which is very intangible. You can't see it, you can't touch it, but love is just knowing love. The more I think about what's wrong in the country, the
Mm.
more wrong it becomes to
Mm.
me.
Okay.
And if I can lift myself out of that anyway, or help other people lift out of that and see the possibilities, because a lot of us, like you and I, we're not suffering from food insecurity,
That's true.
or we have a place to live.
Mhm.
We're not homeless, and there are a lot of us that complain about the pandemic, yet it hasn't really changed our lives in horrible ways like
Right.
it has some people. So
Right. Yeah,
try
I
to
mean,
remember that.
you know, it, in a way, it's kind of like the lockdown and the pandemic for a lot of us has been primarily an inconvenience.
Hmm.
But there are people, yeah, like you said, who are genuinely suffering, and not just because of the pandemic, food insecure. I mean, I'm embarrassed to say how much food in my refrigerator I need to throw out.
Yeah.
There's a lot of it in there. And when you think about like how much of human history would that have just been, a completely unfathomable thing, is like you have so much food that some of it goes bad, you know, and maybe too much of it goes. I mean, I waste too much food. That's my mea culpa for the day. I need to,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's just that um I'm also passionate about remembering to come from gratitude,
Okay.
because it's so easy for me to get hooked up in how horrible things are right now, yet not realize. I mean, Andy and I live in a beautiful place on the river. What do we have to complain about? Well, what a place to be locked in, right?
Yeah.
And that we have enough. We have money to buy food and excess food, like you said, and to have compassion. And plus, we have white privilege. Let's face it. We don't have to worry about being watched when we walk through a store, or telling our kids to be careful when they go out, that they don't get labeled or So uh,
Well,
it
so, but of course, I mean, I don't think I'm revealing too much about you by saying, that you are married to a black man, right?
right.
Right. And you have, and your grandchildren are certainly multiracial, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so but you refer to yourself as being white privileged in
Well,
this, but
I grew up in white privilege, of
yeah.
course. And, I mean, if I'm in a grocery store, I'm identified as a white person that's not seen as a threat,
Hmm.
where my husband might not be, or my kids. I
Okay.
mean,
Okay.
so yeah, even though, and I think that there were probably of times when I've been with Andy when I may have been treated differently than if I had not been, but that it goes the other way too. He may have been treated better because
Mm.
he's, with me. So, I mean, I have been passionate about that. I taught a class on a book about me and white supremacy.
Mhm.
That was kind of a wake up book that was not easy to read and not easy to study, but helping to awaken white people to how we have been, things that we're not even aware of. Like Andy has a friend who's a black guy here in Roseburg, who said that in Roseburg in the 60s or the 70s, he went to co-sign for his white stepson for a
Mhm.
car, and they quoted him say 6% interest, and then when the black man walked in to co-sign, they went, oh, no, no, and now it's 10%.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and how do you know when you're a white person that you're getting a different interest rate? You're not aware. It's nothing that you've done. So it's unconscious. We don't realize how privileged we are,
Do you
I think.
think that's do you think that's the case specifically like in white countries, or do you think it's just a majority ethnicity thing? Like so for instance, let's say you were in England, you know, in 1840, right? And you were going to take out a loan from a bank, but you were an Italian immigrant to England. You know, and of course you could say that like by and large, Italian and English are the same race, you know, but one of them is perceived to be an outsider, right? So I guess is it a white privilege thing or is it a majority privilege thing?
Well, yeah, I think it's both. It's a good point. And you know that there is definitely an elite class that gets treated differently, even if everybody's white.
Yeah,
I
well,
was
that's
just
true.
reading
Yeah.
in Caste that an African person told her that they were not considered. They were not considered black until they
Mhm.
moved to America. In Africa, no one's considered black. They're just people. And
Well,
we in
sure.
America have really labeled the white and black, starting with slavery.
Mhm.
It's just that it's easier to identify. It's not like you can't dress up. Uh, you might be able to dress up a poor person and send them into a bank, and they
Yeah.
looked like a prosperous person, where you can't hide the color of your skin. So it's a little more
Yeah.
problem. But no, it's a good point. It's not just inequality is not just a black white thing, for
That
sure.
yeah, that is for sure. Yeah, so you were talking about it being difficult for you, and just outside of the fact that you know, like I was putting myself in the position of somebody taking out a loan and the guy next to me who happens to be black is treated unfairly, right? And when the perspective of that, it's like, yeah, that's difficult to look at. Was it just that, or did it go deeper for you? And if it did go deeper, like in what ways was it difficult?
Well, I think, because I'm married to a black man and because I have mixed kids, my heart goes out to them. I mean, I'm concerned about my grandchildren being the victims of unconscious racism with
Okay.
teachers. I mean, it's nothing that you can, they did a study where they put some white people in charge of a whole bunch of kids. And they said, okay, watch these kids. I'm going to go out of the room for a while, watch the kids. And they noticed that they spent more time watching the black kids than they did the white kids.
Mhm.
And I might do the same thing.
Oh,
And
really?
it's because it's unconscious. It's not something, a decision that was consciously made. That, I mean, it really hurts my heart to think that they may be seen as less than they are, or identified as troublemakers, or not recognized for the intelligence that they have.
Mhm.
Um, so um, so to me, it hits a little closer to home, but it does really hurt my heart when you think. I mean, there's been studies they that blacks even get less pain medications in hospitals,
Oh,
crazy
wow.
things like that I wouldn't have even believed before. But and there's inequality, like you say, there's inequality everywhere.
Mhm.
It's just a little easier to see when it's based on color, I think. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, eh, I think also, you know, when you mentioned the pain medication, that made me think of one of my own experiences of y- so Oregon in general has a real problem with substance addiction, right? It's something that we deal with both in our rural communities and in our cities, and because of that, the hospitals have been very they've had a lot of trepidation about giving out pain meds because of course, you know, people who are severely addicted will go in with either manufactured injuries or something with the hopes of getting pain medication. And
Right.
so for me, I've had dental problems my entire adult life, you know, and I had an infected tooth, and this was like, it was like a Sunday night, You know, there was no way I was going to get in to a dentist anytime soon. And I had to go to the emergency room. The pain was so bad, and they would not give me pain meds, you know,
Wow.
because the assumption was that I was faking it for pain meds, you know. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I definitely think that, like, when we're talking about racial treatment in America, you know, I think you would have to be pretty blind or pretty willfully ignorant to say that there aren't issues that need to be addressed. Um, but also, you know, the way that those problems are exacerbated by greater societal problems that are happening, be it like substance abuse or
Yeah.
gambling addiction, or, you know, or my favorite subject lately is, you know, broken homes.
Mm.
Y- right. You know, as a former high school teacher, I can't tell you how many kids I saw from single parent, where the single parent wasn't capable of raising, you know, raising their child, either be because she was at work all the time or had other problems. But I worry for this youngest generation.
Yeah. And
That was preachy. I'm sorry about that.
no, 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 that, you know, it's there are challenges show up in all different places, and we can become overwhelmed with them too.
Yeah, that's true.
So, you know, I come back to that phrase like, this too shall pass.
Yes.
Um, I was reading something about the Dalai Lama, just, you know, reminding us all that humanity has always struggled in places, and it's within our power to remember to uh, like that song comes to my mind, on the bright side, you know, the look on the bright side. And it's kind of Pollyannish, but it is I think it's important for us to be able to pull ourselves out of the negativity, like we said, with laughter or reading or taking a walk outside, because it can become overwhelming. There are
Right.
many challenges in society, right? Especially right now.
Hmm. Yeah, for my tirade on single parenting, I wouldn't want anybody to take away that I would be blaming, um, you know, single parents. I've met
No, you
plenty of,
have
yeah.
compassion. You have
Oh yeah,
compassion for the kids. Yeah, I see
right.
that.
Well,
Yeah,
and for the parents too, you know, because there's a lot of them that didn't choose to be in that situation. Um,
right.
yeah. So if in going forward, right, like, you know, whether it be the work that you're doing, either on the front of, like, anti-racism, right, or life coaching, like, if you had to list any of your goals or upcoming things that we could look forward to from you.
Well, I am, you know, I'm exploring doing more teaching online. And, you know, one of the things that I've had to learn is that I always think I haven't done enough.
Okay.
I always beat myself. I was like, oh, you're not doing enough. You're not like
Right.
talking to thousands of people, or you're not like writing best-selling books, or, you know, so I've had to come into a point where in my life where I realize and recognize how much in my 71 years I've already accomplished. So
That's
that
good.
allows me to relax and
Mhm.
to get excited about the next step, rather than be, you know, when I was younger, like, I'm not doing enough, I have to do more. But I just really want to be open to whatever way I can be used to help people wake up to a life of grace and peace.
Mhm.
And I would. It's always been a goal of mine to write a book, and that is one thing that I haven't done. So who knows? Maybe this year I'll start on that. Uh,
Do you think it would be like fiction, nonfiction? What kind of book do you
no,
feel like?
I think it would be sort of maybe the stories that you know, the lessons I've learned in my life for the
Okay.
life that I've lived. you know, the things that I've learned through living through this life, and
Right.
the ways that life has surprised me, and you know, and
Well, what about for somebody who also feels like they haven't done enough or they're not doing enough, right? And what would you say to them if, say, they didn't have Reverend Bonnie Anderson's list of accomplishments, right?
well, but you know, we all have a list of
Okay.
accomplishments. You know, that I think that I was helped by a friend who actually suggested that I write down all the way that I've touched people.
Okay.
And I was amazed, you know, and I thought, wow, I don't even have to do anything else, even though I want to, right? But it gave
Right.
me a sense of freedom. And we can all do that because, Michael, you have touched many. Think of
Oh,
all the students that you touched, the
thank you.
musical students, the people that, I mean, I remember I taught used to teach, I took piano and cello lessons for years,
Wow.
and the depth that I got from my cello lessons, just, you know, that I didn't even think of it at the time, and now I can, a classical piece can bring tears to my eyes that
Yeah.
I learned, you know. And so there are so
Yes.
many people that all of us have touched that we don't even realize.
Oh, yeah.
um,
No, I've been to graduate school. But the lessons that were really meaningful, the education that I keep coming back to in my life was like my high school voice teacher.
yeah,
She was a
yeah,
saintly woman,
yeah.
Yeah, and no, and so you're right. It's like I imagine with any amount of self-reflection, we could all take inventory of the good that that's come out of us, and maybe that's the best step for people in this turmoil.
Yeah, good point. And it's not something that we're used to doing. We're not taught
Yeah,
to look for the good.
yeah,
You know, we're taught to look at the places that we don't measure up to some ideal that maybe we learned as a kid that's not even a true measure of worth. But to look at all the, you know, the ways, like that teacher that taught you
mhm,
the music. Think of how many is it was a woman? Was it a
mhm,
woman?
yeah, yeah,
She probably touched so many more people than she realized.
yeah,
She would be surprised if she knew you were saying this many years later, probably. And think about
yeah,
how many all of us could say. You know, there's sometimes when we help a friend that we don't realize what a difference we've made in their lives.
mhm.
So I think that, yeah, if we took stock of that, we've already accomplished so much. Everyone has, you know.
Well, and you could, again, to take it further, you could say that's such an important reminder to validate the people in our lives while we still can,
Yes.
because yeah,
Yes. Yes.
so
Yeah. There was a teacher in sophomore English that assigned, and I didn't think of myself as terribly smart or intelligent. I was hanging around with kind of loser kids, and nobody was going to college. And even though my dad, you know, really believed in education, I didn't. But he picked a different book for everyone in the class to read. And as a sophomore in high school, he picked the Brothers Karamazov
oh
by
wow,
Dostoevsky. And I was
yeah,
like, what the heck? I have to read this big Russian novel. Why
yeah,
did he pick that for me? And then I asked him, and he said, because I know that you would understand it and would learn from
wow,
it. And it woke me up to my own intelligence. I loved that book.
yeah.
But that teacher made a profound difference in my life.
Well, yeah, so he could see something in you that maybe
Yes,
you weren't seeing in yourself
exactly.
at the
And
time.
that's what teachers do a lot, you
That's
know.
right. Yeah, and I imagine that's probably been a big part of your ministry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
because I know I know for the services that you've done for us, um, you know, y- the talks that you've been giving have been so empowering to the individual, that which is why you keep coming back, which which is great. So I will link perhaps to, are you doing a website now, or Is there a place where people
It's,
can find
it's
you?
under construction. There isn't right now, but we're
Okay.
working on it. That's actually one of the things that I have not done that I want that I want to get done.
Very
So
nice. Yeah.
I'll let you know when it's ready.
Okay. Yeah. Our church is working on, we're in a similar spot. So, man, Bonnie, that was a fast hour. That
It
was
really
such a,
was. Thank you, Michael. It was
yeah.
fun. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. And I think you have a service coming up for the UU. So, we'll look forward to that.
Yeah, good.
All
Yeah.
right.
Well, thank you, Michael,
Yeah.
and I'm grateful for all the influence you've had on your
Oh,
students.
oh, well, and hey, thank you. Right back at you. Well, take care,
Okay.
Bonnie. Have a
All
happy,
right.
happy anniversary. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
All righty. Take care. Thanks, Michael.